blood and thunder beneath the mountain. In a land where the wind howled through the valleys and the mountains scraped the heavens, there was a village nestled in the shadow of an ancient, craggy peak known as Thundergard Mountain. The villagers spoke in hushed voices about the mountain, claiming that the very earth beneath it trembled with the weight of forgotten battles and the cries of warriors long past. These were not mere tales, for every so often, the skies would darken, and thunder would roar so loudly that it felt as if the mountain itself was speaking, or perhaps, awakening. At the heart of the village lived a warrior named Kealan, a young man with eyes like the storm clouds that swirled above Thundergard. His father, Iverek, had been the village's greatest protector, a man whose strength was only matched by his wisdom. But Verek was lost to the mountain many years ago, slain in battle against a horde of marauding mountain trolls that had descended from the peaks in search of plunder. Since then, Kealan had trained in silence, his blade sharp with the memory of his father's death. One fateful evening, as Kealan sharpened his sword beneath the light of a blood-red moon, the messenger arrived at the village's gates. The old woman, known as Mara the seer, spoke with a voice that trembled with fear. "The mountain is stirring again. The trolls are not just a nuisance anymore, they are calling to something beneath the earth. Something old, something powerful. The mountain will soon break, and with it, the blood of our people will flow in rivers." Kealan, having heard the stories all his life, asked with a cold edge to his voice, "What do you ask of me?" "I ask you to stop what has begun. To face the mountain's heart, where blood and thunder have not ceased since the beginning of time." That night, Kealan stood on the edge of the village, staring into the depths of the shadow cast by Thundergard. He had grown up hearing about the creatures that dwelled in its caverns, the trolls, the ogres, and even darker things older than the stars themselves. But Mara spoke of a power far older, something far darker, something that was never meant to be released. The next morning, Kealan gathered his gear, his sword, a shield, and his father's old war helm, and set out alone toward the mountain's base. As he climbed, the wind grew colder, and the very stones beneath his feet seemed to groan with the weight of centuries. His heart pounded in his chest, but his resolve was as unyielding as the rocks around him. By the time Kealan reached the cave entrance, the storm clouds above had begun to gather. The thunder rumbled ominously in the distance, sending chills through his spine. The cave was dark and damp, and the air inside was thick with the scent of earth and decay. Yet, despite the oppressive silence, Kealan could feel the mountain's heartbeat, a low and steady pulse that vibrated through the very walls. Deeper and deeper he ventured, the path narrowing with every step, until he reached the heart of the mountain. There, in the deepest cavern, he found what he feared, the ancient temple of the trolls. It was a place long abandoned by mortals, hidden from the eyes of men for centuries, but it was alive with dark energy now. The stone altar in the center was stained with blood, the remnants of ancient rituals performed in the name of forgotten gods. And then, he saw it, Verek. His father stood at the altar, his body twisted and corrupted by dark magic. His once strong arms were bound by chains of obsidian, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. He was not the man Kealan had known. This was something else. A vessel for the power of the mountain itself. "Father!" Kealan cried, his voice breaking through the thunder above. Verek turned, his face contorted into a grimace. "You should not have come, Kealan. You cannot stop what has already begun." The ground beneath them shook as the mountain seemed to roar in response. The trolls, hidden in the dark recesses of the cave, began to stir, their eyes glinting with malice. The dark ritual was reaching its peak. Kealan drew his sword, his heart heavy with grief and fury. He had come for his father to end the curse that had taken hold of him, but what he faced now was not just a battle for his father's soul, it was a battle for the fate of the village and perhaps the world itself. With a rod, Kealan charged at the altar, his sword flashing through the air. Verek's dark eyes flickered with a moment of recognition, but he raised his arms, summoning the trolls to his side. The creatures howled in fury as they charged, their claws scraping against stone, their breath heavy with the scent of death. The battle that ensued was like none Kealan had ever fought. He faced trolls that towered over him, their strength far greater than any mortal man's. But Kealan fought with the fury of a son who had lost everything, his blade slicing through the dark creatures with precision and rage. The cavern was filled with the sounds of steel on stone, of roars and screams, of thunder that rattled the very foundations of the earth. At last, Kealan reached the altar, his sword raised high. "This ends now," he shouted, his voice carrying through the storm. With a single strike, Kealan shattered the chains that bound his father, but the moment the chains broke, Verek's form disintegrated into dust, his spirit freed but consumed by the mountain's dark magic. The dark energy that had held him was released in a blast that shook the very heavens. Thunder roared louder than ever, but Kealan stood unbowed, the storm howling around him as the mountain began to collapse. The trolls, too, began to crumble into dust, their dark magic no match for the parody of